Whether you're running a tricked out SVD for Punisher or simply a Mosin along the way, and you've ever wondered what's the best 7.62 by 5.4R, so today we're going to be doing all of the ammos for this caliber up against different levels of armor so you can see which one is the best for you. So we're actually going to be testing all of the ammos here today, starting off here with T46M, LPS, 7M1, 7B, T1, SMB, and working our way up to 7 and 37. We're going to break down the armor penetration of each of these calibers. As always, along the way, guys, we're going to be testing all of them from level 3 all the way up to level 6 armor, starting with Kirasa and working our way up to Slick Plate Carrier. The normal things apply, multiple tests if there's any weirdness, every armor is at max durability, and also counting fragmentation. We're going to be starting off here today with T46M, starting off with 78 damage and 59 pen. This is an introduction to the caliber and can be accessed at Prap or level 2. Not only is this round one of the cheapest, but it is quite effective, and let's punch it up against a fresh Kirasa here and see what we're looking at. Now Trooper. Working our way up to a 75 Gen 4. And last but not least, an 80 out of 80 Slick. So for an entry round, that may not really seem like you're probably thinking, looking at this Slick here, you're thinking, why would you ever spend any more money on something other than T46M being the entry round here anyway? I think the really interesting thing about this is seeing how it compares. Up to 5 on a class 6 can be an issue. But what about LPS GZH here with 81 damage and 42 pen? Slightly better and probably the most common. I think the interesting thing about LPS GZH is the fact that it doesn't really vary much from T46M. And as we look at the results here up against armor, the results aren't that much different either. Although the interesting part is, however, LPS GZH is actually more expensive than T46M. But the results that we got from all these tests aren't that much better. So you're simply paying for not a tracer variant of basically the same flesh and basically the same pen. Once again, brute force punching its way through the Slick. Now, throughout all the tests that we did, we got about 2 on level 3, 2 to 3 on level 4, and 3 to 4 on level 5, and around about 5 on level 6. As we move up to 7 and 1 here at 86 damage and 45 pen, we're going to be noticing there's a chance for that one tap. And when we put it up against the Kirasa, and so we saw some weird results here. In fact, the guy with the Slick ended up dying to a stomach shot, and we were worried about the Kirasa one tap being a one-off thing, so we did this a few more times. We tested it again. I think this is why 7M1 is so expensive. You run that extra high flesh, it's much more reliable on low-level players. And when you're running up and not always hitting people in the stomach here or the thorax, you can actually get a lot more reliability from 7M1 when you're hitting arms and other multiple parts along the body due to the fact that it has a higher amount of flesh. But 7M1 is incredibly expensive compared to LPS here, and you can only buy small amounts each reset. So I think that's really interesting to factor in. So let's look at 7BT1. We're going to be looking at a tracer variant and a very reliable penetrative round here. Obviously, these red tips are also tracers. You're going to see 2 here up against Kirasa and up against a Trooper. Another 2 rounds to bring a Trooper and a 75 Gen. 2 shots for a Gen 4. And last but not least, Slick. All right, so we're currently at the point here now where you're going to start to notice when you look at the Slicks, they're starting to pass through the armor instead of brute forcing them with blunt damage. We're going to be noticing that it's going to be a 2-tap across all levels of armor when moving up from 7M1 to 7BT1. But you sacrifice that chance at 1-tap along lower level armors due to the lack of flesh. SMB, however, with 62 pen and 75 damage, is not going to get any 1-taps, but with that incredible amount of pen is going to give you reliability. And when we see it up against armor here, we're noticing the same trend across the board here. 2 shots for most of the armors in the game. Now we went through and did some outside testing here with some killer armors and multiple level 5s and 6, and it was always the same thing. Except up against the Brallo can be 3, sometimes 4 shots. So let's have a look at 7N37 here, the last and most expensive round. Coming in at 72 damage and 70 pen. This overkill round, it can be quite expensive. It bought from Prap or Max. I think the interesting part here is, however, you're not going to notice any improvement. Once again, for pretty much every single armor in the game, putting them down in 2 shots. Now, I think the interesting thing you need to understand about 7N37 is it's much more expensive than SMB. In fact, if we go to the menus here and do a quick price check, we're going to be noticing that LPS, one of the entry rounds, is 447 rubles, whereas T46M is 250. Now, we saw that they were comparatively pretty much exactly the same, except T46M is a tracer. So you're basically paying 200 rubles less per round for a tracer, which doesn't matter when it's coming out of a loud Mosin anyway. As we work our way up to the next round here, 7BT1, one of the reliable 2-taps here, we're looking at a rough 600 rubles here, with SMB being 500 from traders. Now, 517 rubles from the trader and the 7N37 being 974. Let's understand something about SMB here, which I think is really interesting for you guys at home, is that SMB can be found commonly across reserve and other maps. And because it can be found so much, it is actually incredibly cheap on the flea market, actually making it one of the cheapest rounds here, just next to T46M, for reliability of pen and also how cheap it can be. As we look at the other different rounds here from the traders, 7M1 can be quite expensive at 719 with only 60 per reset. The 7M1 is a great round because it adds accuracy to the rounds here, and it's also that gives you that chance for a 1-tap. However, off the flea market is stupidly expensive. So you guys might be confused here when choosing between SMB and 7N37. I want you guys to understand as well, for long distance shooting, SMB is actually much faster here, coming in at 875 meters per second compared to 7N37's 785, which is actually really significant in long distance shooting. As for budget choice, you got the choice between LPS if you can't stand tracers, or T46M if you don't mind and you want that bang for buck. As we look at long distance sniping, I'd recommend 7M1 for 1-taps and 7BT1 for tracer. SMB is actually my all-round pick here, guys. I can't beat this round in my humble opinion. If you guys enjoyed this video and any of the testing along the way, make sure to subscribe for future videos. I'm going to be working on some more armor testing, so you don't want to miss that. And as always, guys, we'll see you on the next one.